Claressa Shields has officially done it. She has taken every ounce of the generational goodwill she built up as a two-time Olympic gold medalist, as the most decorated amateur boxer this country has produced in a generation, as a woman who genuinely deserved to be called the face of women's boxing at one point in time. And she has walked it into a recording studio in the middle of a training camp she is supposed to be locked in on. And she has lit it on fire in front of everybody. And I need you to understand right off the top that the framing being pushed on your timeline right now, that this is bold, that this is champion energy, that this is the GWOT unbothered and dropping heat on a smaller woman who ran her mouth, is not what this actually is. What you are actually watching in real time on an AI-generated Barbie doll cover art that does not even look like the person it is supposed to be, is a woman whose leverage has quietly evaporated, whose ticket sales are reportedly softer than her camp wants anybody to know, whose brand phone has gone quiet in a way that women at her level of accomplishment do not usually experience, and who has decided that the only way out of that silence is to punch 30 pounds down at a featherweight who lives rent-free in her head. This is not a diss track. This snippet she dropped called Run Your Mouth is not the story. The song is trash, and we will absolutely get to why the song is trash, but the song is only the surface. The story sitting underneath the song is the one nobody in mainstream boxing media has connected yet. And by the time we get to the part in this video where we break down who her friend group actually is, who she has burned, who has dissed her on wax and gotten silence back, and what the promotional math with MVP really looks like right now, and I promise you we are getting to every single one of those pieces, you are going to understand why Run Your Mouth is not a diss record. It is a distress signal. It is the sound of a career that is not moving units, not moving tickets, not moving brand deals, trying to manufacture a heat cycle by picking on the smallest professional in the smallest arena, where the champion doing the picking cannot lose the war of noise. And when we connect the name that keeps appearing in two different places in this story that mainstream boxing press has not linked together yet, you're going to see why every move she has made in the last 12 months has been about one thing, and it is not boxing. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Alright, let us set the whole board so nobody watching is lost on the geography of this thing, because the geography is genuinely everything. Claressa Shields, from Flint, Michigan, two-time Olympic gold medalist, undisputed multi-division world champion, one of the most accomplished amateur boxers the United States has ever produced across any weight class or any gender. That resume is not up for debate on this channel or anywhere else. Nobody is taking that from her. What is up for debate, what has to be up for debate if we're going to have an honest conversation, is what she has done with that resume in the last calendar year, because the last calendar year has been a masterclass in how to convert legacy capital into public embarrassment at record speed. On the other side of this, you have Alycia Baumgardner, undisputed super featherweight world champion, one of the most technical, sharpest fighters in her weight class, signed to most valuable promotions, which for anybody who does not follow the business side of boxing is Jake Paul's promotional company that has been quietly, methodically building the most active female roster in the entire sport. Baumgardner walks around at 130 pounds. Claressa just fought at 175 pounds and is reportedly cutting to 160 for a matchup with an Australian fighter that a huge percentage of casual boxing fans in America have never heard of and could not pick out a lineup. So before we get to the AI Barbie cover, before we get to the 10-second snippet, before we get to the middle finger punching through the boxing glove that turned into an MMA glove halfway through the design generator, understand this simple, unavoidable arithmetic. We are talking about a woman fighting at 160 aiming a diss record at a woman fighting at 130. That is a 30-pound weight gap in a sport where a 3-pound weight gap decides championships. That is not a rivalry. That is not a call-out. That is a bully picking a mismatch and hoping the internet does not do the math. And the stakes on this rollout are so much bigger than one bad snippet, because every single move she is making right now is broadcasting to Nike, to Powerade, to Target, to Chipotle, to Sprite, to every major brand that might have considered a headline women's boxing endorsement. Exactly what kind of partner she is going to be. She is telling her opponent's legal team in writing on public posts exactly what her legal posture is toward a woman who reportedly already said there will be consequences after a physical altercation between the two. She is telling the fans who have been holding the line for her that their loyalty is being spent on a rap career nobody in the culture asked for. And she is doing all of this while she is supposed to be in camp. So the question sitting under this entire video, the question I want you carrying with you from this second until the final frame, is a very simple one. If this fight is so easy, if this opponent is so beneath her, if her legacy is so locked in, then why does every single thing she is doing right now smell exactly like panic? Let us start with what you can actually see with your own two eyes, because you do not have to take my word for a single piece of this. The receipts are already public, and Claressa herself posted them. She uploaded the single cover for a song called Run Your Mouth to her own verified social media accounts, with the caption, "You wanted a response. Press play. Run Your Mouth. Claressa Shields." That is her page, her caption, her rollout, the cover art itself, and I want you to picture this carefully because it is genuinely one of the funniest pieces of visual marketing a professional athlete has put out this entire calendar year. Depicts Claressa as a pin-up Barbie doll. Except the Barbie doll does not actually look like Claressa. The doll looks like a pageant contestant from a completely different city who has never set foot in Flint. The doll is noticeably lighter complexion than Claressa is in real life, which raises an immediate question on a marketing level, because you are the subject of your own cover. Why on earth would you whiten yourself on your own single cover? Then, tucked into the bottom corner of the same cover art, you have what is supposed to be Alycia Baumgardner, groveling at the Barbie doll's feet with tears in her eyes, rendered in a shade noticeably darker than Baumgardner is in real life. And then, for reasons no one on this planet can explain, there is a smaller inset image on the side where a disembodied hand with a middle finger up is punching through what starts as a boxing glove and appears to morph halfway through the render into an MMA glove. It is AI. It is cheap AI. It is the kind of AI you get when you type, "Make me a Barbie boxer," into a free web generator and click the button once and accept whatever it spits back at you. And this is not a bootleg cover that a fan account made. This is the official art that she pushed to her own verified page as the official rollout of her official record. Then there is the snippet itself. 10 seconds. 10 seconds of audio is what she chose to give the world as the appetizer for this rollout. And I have listened to this thing a lot, more times than any human being should have to. And even a cappella with the beat stripped out for copyright reasons, the delivery is a genuine problem. She sounds rushed. She sounds like she is chasing the beat instead of writing it. The way she pronounces the word internet alone tells you nobody in that recording booth pumped the brakes and said, "Hey, one more time on that line." The bars themselves, this 304 cells. She be on the internet saying she can whoop me. Now she pressing charges. The cops want to book me. Whole way above 30 trying to be a bully. Those are Dr. Seuss bars dressed up in a Detroit costume. And I do not say that to be cute. I say that as somebody who listens to a lot of rap, a lot of Detroit rap specifically, because this beat is trying to sit in the same room as a T Grizzly record, and it sounds like somebody found a T Grizzly type beat on YouTube, forgot to buy the exclusive, and hoped nobody would notice. The beat is not really the problem. The beat is fine. The problem, as I have said 100 times about 100 other athlete rap projects, is user error. She is offbeat, and when the beat is running one direction and the artist is running the other direction, what you have is not a diss record. What you have is a track meet. And then there are her replies. And this is where the surface layer really starts compounding on itself in a way that even her most loyal stans cannot defend with a straight face. Because Claressa did not just drop the song and let the internet do what the internet does. She got in her own comment section. Somebody left a completely reasonable low-temperature comment saying drop that weight like she asked, and Claressa's response on her verified page was to call the person a loser and tell them Baumgardner needs to gain weight because I'm number one stupid. Somebody else commented that the Barbie on the cover looks better than the actual person, and Claressa's response to that fan was to call the fan ugly by name. Somebody else called the whole thing wacky as anything, and Claressa, verified, blue check, world champion, replied and called that person ugly too. She is a professional athlete on her own official page, calling paying fans ugly. This is the marketing campaign. This is the rollout strategy. She is fighting with strangers whose profile pictures she has never zoomed in on, and she is doing it under her own name, on the same post where she is supposed to be selling a song to those exact strangers. That is not confidence. That is not champion energy. That is a person who genuinely, physically, cannot get off the app. And oh, do I have more for you. The stans are absolutely not going to like this next stretch of the video, because the next layer is where this stops being a one bad snippet story and starts being a documented, on the record, on wax pattern that Claressa supporters have spent years pretending is not there. Sit up for this one, because when we get through the next 4 or 5 minutes together, you are going to understand that Run Your Mouth is not even the biggest problem in this rollout. The biggest problem is what Run Your Mouth is quietly admitting about who she is willing to answer and who she is not. Because here is the cultural layer, and this is where the wheels really come off the car. If you're going to position yourself publicly as a rapper, if you're going to sign to a label, if you're dating a rapper who has publicly claimed at various points to have written a significant portion of another rapper's catalog, then the rules of engagement change on you, whether you signed up for them or not. You do not get to pick and choose which disses count and which disses do not. And Claressa Shields has been dissed on wax by actual rappers multiple times over, and the response every single time has been silence. Let us start with Remy Ma, because Remy Ma is not a subliminal figure. Remy Ma is one of the most technically respected female MCs of her entire generation. And on the Put Them on Record, Remy has bars that any reasonable listener inside the culture understands to be aimed directly at Claressa and at Papoose. There's a passage on that record. Ever since you left me remix, French Montana. This New York City, French, Max B, Remy always the one, never the two. I told him find something stupid to play with. He pick you. That whole run, in context, in the timeline of what has been happening publicly between those two households, is understood by anybody paying attention to be pointed at that specific household. And then Remy went back and did it again, on camera, on the radar rap about that series with the green background, and got even sharper. You want to be a baddie, but you're not bad enough. You ugly, you can't make this up with makeup. The numbers ain't adding up. You're not a baddie. That is not subliminal. That is not vague. That is a real rapper putting a real target on you on wax, twice minimum, possibly 3 times if you count the follow-ups. And Claressa's response has been what exactly? A subliminal tweet here and there? Radio silence on wax? Absolutely nothing that could be described as a real reply from someone who claims to be a real artist. Then you have Nigeria, who was reportedly Claressa's close friend before things fell apart, who then went and stood in front of the Claressa Shields street sign in Flint, Michigan. Claressa's own city, Claressa's own block, the actual physical sign that bears Claressa's name, and dissed her on camera. Your ex-best friend used your own street sign as the backdrop to come at you, and you did not answer. Not on wax. Not with a snippet. Nothing. And the argument some of the softer stands want to make is, well, that was a personal situation. That is not the same. No, it is exactly the same, and I would argue it is worse. If Nigeria felt compelled enough to physically walk to your street sign, set up a camera, and record a diss against the person the sign is named after, the friendship was already publicly over, and the response to a public diss is a public response. That is the entire game. You do not get to skip the game because it is uncomfortable. So now stack this thing up properly. Remy Ma, actual rapper, disses you on wax multiple times over multiple releases. Your response is silence. Nigeria, reportedly a former close friend and an actual rapper, disses you standing in front of your own street sign in your own city. Your response is silence. And then Alycia Baumgardner, who is a professional boxer, who is not a rapper, who does not sing, who has never claimed to be a lyricist in any lane at any point, says at a media scrum that she would knock you out because the reporters kept pressing her about you. And that is the target you decide to answer with a full studio session, a cover art rollout, a snippet drop, and a multi-day comment section war on your own page. That, right there, tells you everything you need to know about the ranking system inside Claressa's head. You do not answer the rappers because on some level you already know you cannot compete with them lyrically. You answer the boxer because the boxer does not rap. It is the entire logic of a bully. Pick the smallest opponent in the smallest arena and swing hard enough that nobody notices you skip the actual fights. And there is another cultural piece nobody in mainstream boxing media wants to sit with, which is the friend group carnage. Because this is not just Baumgardner. This is not just Nigeria. Run the list slowly. Shadeja Green, beef. Layla Ali, who by every credible report was an early mentor figure, who Claressa was publicly warm to for years. Now Layla is on camera saying she is not breaking bread with Claressa. She is not coming out of retirement for that fight. She does not trust the people around her. And it is a no can do. Franchen Cruz Dezern, same trajectory. Once cool. Now dragged on the microphone every chance Claressa gets. Even her own sister and her own cousin have reportedly been pulled into public disputes at various points. That is not a personality clash. That is not everybody is a hater. When every single person in your orbit, from your mentors to your peers to your ex-best friend to members of your own family, ends up on the outs with you, the common denominator is not them. And I want to be genuinely fair here, because I am not running a hit piece. There is a version of this story where Claressa is just a competitor and competitors talk crazy and everybody in combat sports says something in a press cycle they later regret. And I hear that argument. I have heard that argument in my comments 100 times over. The counter to that argument, the reason it does not survive scrutiny, is that competitors in every other combat sport find a way to hype a fight without accusing a fellow professional of criminal or unverifiable behavior on a public post. Competitors find a way to be brash without spending a training camp arguing with fans in their own mentions. Competitors find a way to sell tickets without recording rap dices at featherweights they outweigh by 30 pounds. So the "she is just a competitor" defense is not a defense. It is an excuse. And it is the exact excuse the stands lean on because they do not have a better one. Now here is where I need to slow all the way down because this is the moment the entire video changes gears. And if you have made it this far in the video, you are amazing. But the next stretch is the stretch that turns this from an entertainment story into the story you cannot get anywhere else. Up to this point, we have been talking about music and personality and pettiness and comment section wars. We have been operating in entertainment mode. From here on out, I need you thinking about this as a business story because that is what it fundamentally is. And once you see it as a business story, none of Claressa's behavior looks random anymore. And every single one of these moves that seems chaotic on the surface starts to make a very specific, very desperate kind of sense. Layer 3. The industry layer. This is the layer the average boxing fan does not spend time thinking about. And it is the layer that quietly explains everything you just watched in the first half of this video. Let us start with the promotional math. Because the promotional math is where this really lives. Alycia Baumgardner is signed to Most Valuable Promotions, MVP, and MVP's business model, if you have been paying attention to the way they book fighters, is high-frequency activity. Get your fighters on cards. Get them on Netflix. Get them on Fox. Get them in front of new eyeballs on every platform that will pay for the rights. Keep them working. Amanda Serrano just fought, and reportedly already has another matchup lined up in a crossover event. Baumgardner reportedly has a Fox television slot coming down the pipe. The MVP female roster is being built out like an actual stable, like a real promotional company that understands that in 2026 boxing, in this streaming environment, in this attention economy, activity is the currency and inactivity is death. Claressa's camp does not operate that way. Claressa's camp has historically leaned on Claressa's individual star power to drive the marquee, which was a completely viable strategy in an earlier era of women's boxing when there was really only one name at the very top of the sport that mainstream fans could rattle off. That is not the era of women's boxing we are in anymore. There are 10, 12, 15 names now with legitimate followings, real amateur pedigrees, real professional records, and the promotional infrastructure being built around them is catching up to Claressa's brand at a speed her camp did not anticipate. So when Claressa gets on a rant and says MVP, build your fighters without mentioning me, what she is actually saying, whether she consciously realizes it or not, is that MVP has become a competitor at the promotional level, not just at the fighter level. And she is losing that competition in real time. That is why the mention keeps happening. That is why she cannot stop bringing up Baumgardner, even in interviews that started about somebody else entirely. Now stack the ticket problem on top of that. There have been persistent reports, and I want to be careful and say reports, that ticket sales for her upcoming fight with the Australian opponent have been soft. Not catastrophic. Soft. And when you are the self-proclaimed face of women's boxing headlining a card in what should be your competitive prime, soft is a 5-alarm red flag. Soft is the number the network sees, the number the site fee partners see, the number every future co-promoter sees when they are running the math on whether to write you a check. And soft numbers force a decision at your camp meeting. You can either lean into the actual craft, make the fight competitive looking, hype your opponent up as a real threat, sell the storyline of the matchup itself, and rebuild the demand organically over the next fight cycle. Or you can pour gasoline all over the internet and hope somebody clicks the video and buys the pay-per-view. Guess which one Claressa's camp picked? They picked the gasoline. The rap diss, the AI Barbie, the comment section wars, the call-outs of retired fighters like Layla Ali, the call-outs of rappers like 50 Cent, the call-outs of MMA legends like Chris Cyborg. Every single one of those moves is a manufactured spike. It is not a strategy. It is a series of flares fired straight up into the sky because the real demand signal is not being received on the ground. Then there is layer 3B, the brand deal problem. And this is where I need you to think like a marketer for a second instead of like a fan. When was the last time a major national brand, a Nike, a Powerade, a Target, a Sprite, a Chipotle, a real 2026 crossover mainstream brand with real buying power, announced a headline endorsement with Claressa Shields? Not a niche partnership. Not a boxing-specific partner. A real crossover mainstream brand. It has been extraordinarily quiet. And it has been quiet for a very specific reason. And the reason is that brands in this current environment are terrified of unpredictable talent in a way they have never been before. Every argument in her comments, every fan she calls ugly by name on her verified page, every public accusation she makes about another woman in her sport, every allegedly defamatory line in a diss track, every single one of those becomes a checkbox on a brand safety report that lands on some VP of partnerships desk in some downtown office and gets that folder closed forever. She is not being frozen out because of racism. She is not being frozen out because of misogyny. She is being frozen out because she is a business liability. And the genuine tragedy of it, and I mean this, is that if she operated with even 60% of the discipline of the athletes who are actually landing those deals right now, she would be one of the most bankable women in the entire sport. The resume is that good. The story is that compelling. But brands do not buy resumes. Brands buy predictability. And predictability is the one thing she absolutely refuses to sell them. Layer 3C is the defamation exposure. And this is the one I really want you sitting with, because now we are in genuinely serious legal territory. Baumgardner reportedly said, after the physical altercation between the two of them, that there will be consequences. Anybody who has spent 5 minutes in a room with a sports attorney knows what there will be consequences means in that specific context. It means lawyers. It means filings. It means a paper trail being built. And what has Claressa done in the days since that statement was made public? She has gone on her own verified page and put the screenshots circulating across boxing Twitter and Instagram, referred to Baumgardner in language that would be extraordinarily difficult to defend in a courtroom without receipts. She has, again per public posts, allegedly accused Baumgardner of behavior that a plaintiff's attorney would circle in red marker and put on the front page of a complaint. And this is a woman who has publicly said in interviews and on her own accounts that she is prepared to sue people for defamation. She has threatened defamation suits against bloggers, against streamers, against other public figures who have made claims about her. So she understands the concept. She just does not seem to understand that the concept applies in both directions. You cannot be the person threatening a defamation lawsuit on Monday and posting statements that fit the textbook definition of defamation on Tuesday. That is not a strategy. That is building your opponent's case for them in public with a smile on your face in front of every future juror who scrolls past it on the timeline. And here is the truth bomb. Here is the reveal I have been walking you toward for this entire video. And I need you to actually hear this, because everything up to this point, the trash rap, the AI Barbie, the ignored Remy Ma Receipts, the burned mentorships with Layla Ali, the soft ticket sales, the missing brand deals, the mounting defamation exposure, the friend group that has emptied out one member at a time. Every single one of those threads ties back to a single reality that Claressa Shields cannot say out loud on any platform and that her camp cannot admit in any meeting room. She is not being cornered by her enemies. She is being cornered by her own choices. And the choices are being made because the leverage she used to have is quietly, completely, structurally gone. Read that sentence again in your head. The leverage is gone. For a long stretch of her career, Claressa Shields was the leverage. She was the reason the network showed up to the table. She was the reason the site fee got approved by the venue. She was the reason the co-promoter took the meeting. That is not the market anymore. That has not been the market for at least 18 months. The market has other names now, other legitimate draws, other compelling stories, other rosters, other promotional companies, moving with faster velocity than her camp is moving with, and doing it with fighters who do not spend their training camps arguing with strangers in their mentions. And when the leverage disappears, an athlete has exactly two options. Option 1 is to go quiet, get back in the gym, take a smart fight, look phenomenal on fight night, and let the work quietly rebuild the leverage over the next 12 to 18 months. That is what a disciplined champion does. That is what every all-time great in this sport has done at some point in their career when the room got cold. Option 2 is to try to manufacture the leverage through pure controversy, because controversy is the last free resource left on the internet. Option 2 is what she picked. And the reason she picked it, the reason the diss track exists at all, the reason the AI Barbie cover exists at all, the reason she is calling fans ugly on her own page in the middle of a training camp is because she knows, on some level she is not saying out loud, that a boring news cycle for her right now is a dangerous news cycle for her career. Silence is the enemy. Any noise, even embarrassing noise, feels safer to her than silence. That is the actual reveal here. That is what Run Your Mouth is really about. Run Your Mouth is not a diss to Alycia Baumgardner. Run your mouth is a distress signal from an artist and an athlete who is scared of what happens when the room finally goes quiet on her, and who is willing to burn every professional relationship, every brand relationship, every mentorship, and every last drop of critical goodwill she has left to keep the room loud around her for one more news cycle. That is not a champion. That is a person allegedly trying to outrun their own irrelevance in real time on camera and doing it at 160 pounds against a woman at 130. Now let us zoom back out, because the story is not all bleak and the culture is not lost. And this is the part one actually enjoy telling. Because while all of this manufactured chaos has been going on in Claressa's corner of the internet, Alycia Baumgardner has been quietly doing what disciplined professionals do in this sport. She has been posting her body of work. She has been showing up to her media scrums, answering the questions she is actually asked, being visibly annoyed when the questions are silly, and moving on with her day. She has been posting photos where her physique speaks for itself, where the tricep is defined, where the complexion is glowing, where the outfit is right, and where the caption is short, and the comments underneath those photos are full of real people telling her she looks good, without her having to prompt anybody to say it back to her. That is a very underrated distinction, and I want you to really sit with it. One woman posts a photo, and the audience tells her she looks good. The other woman posts the photo and reposts it again and captions it with her own compliments about her own body, and then argues with anybody in the comments who does not chime in on cue. Those are two completely different psychological profiles operating in the same sport. One is a professional who trusts the work she has already put in. The other is a person who needs the crowd to say it back on demand or the whole day falls apart. And that difference, that quiet, unglamorous, discipline versus desperation difference, is the entire story of who is going to still be standing at the top of this sport in 3 years and who is going to be a footnote at the bottom of somebody else's Wikipedia page. And this is the part one want the young fighters watching this video to actually take with them. You do not have to be the loudest voice in the room. You do not have to record a diss track every time a reporter asks you a follow-up question. You do not have to fight in the comment section of your own post. You do not have to burn every mentor, every peer, every friend, every promotional partner, and every family member just to prove that you are unbothered. Being genuinely unbothered looks like Baumgardner right now. Being genuinely unbothered looks like a fighter who trains, posts a workout clip, answers one question at the podium, and goes home. The person actually winning this exchange quietly, decisively, is the person who has said the least. Remember that. The person who has said the least. Claressa has said everything, on every platform, in every register, on wax, in comments, in interviews, in rants, on lives, in spaces, in tweets, in reposts, in reply threads. And where has it actually gotten her? Softer ticket sales, quieter brand phones, more legal exposure, fewer allies, a shrinking friend group, and a rap snippet that is going to age like a gallon of milk left on a car dashboard in July. Meanwhile, Baumgardner posts one picture with a 2-word caption, and the internet writes her marketing plan for her for free. That is the contrast. One person is fighting a war of noise. The other person is winning a war of quiet. And in this sport, in this culture, in this era, the war of quiet always wins the long game. Write that down somewhere you can see it. So where does this thing go from here? Because that is really the only question left. And I want to give you 2 very concrete storylines to track so you are not caught off guard when the next wave of this hits your timeline. Track 1. Watch what happens with the full Run Your Mouth song when it drops. Because right now it is a 10-second snippet, and a snippet is deniable. A snippet is you did not hear the whole thing yet. Wait until the real verses are out. When the full track drops, we get to hear the verses in full. We get to see the streaming numbers in the first 48 hours across Spotify and Apple. We get to see whether TikTok picks it up or whether it dies in the algorithm without a sound. And we get to see whether Papoose, who has been suspiciously absent from any songwriting credit anybody is confirming, actually stepped in on the record, or whether she recorded it alone. That is going to tell us a lot about what is really going on in that household right now. Track 2. Watch the legal side very closely. Watch the language coming out of Baumgardner's camp in the next few weeks. Watch whether there will be consequences turns into an actual filing in an actual courthouse. And watch how Claressa's team responds if it does, because that response is going to tell you exactly how confident they really are about what is provable and what is not. Both of those tracks are going to unfold on their own timeline over the next few weeks, and both of them are going to be covered on this channel in real time as they develop. So if you are not subscribed yet, this is your reminder that this is the exact kind of story that moves fast and rewards the people who are already in the room when it moves. Hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, do the whole thing while you are here. And before you click off this video, I have to tell you what is coming next, because the next video I am dropping is going to peel back another layer of this entire ecosystem that you have been asking me to talk about for months in the comments. We're going to sit down and go piece by piece through the actual promotional math behind the MVP roster, the Baumgardner fight economics, the site fee structures nobody in mainstream boxing press is publishing, and the quiet reason a certain co-promoter in Claressa's camp has been reportedly making phone calls they do not want anybody to know about. There is a name that keeps appearing in two completely different places in the story that mainstream boxing media has not connected yet. And when we connect those dots on this channel in the next video, you're going to understand why Run Your Mouth was never really about Alycia Baumgardner at all. It was about a room, a deal, and a deadline. Do not miss that one. It is already loaded up on the end screen right now. Click it while you are still in the mood, and I will see you in the very next one.